Football with friends is fun as hell. My name is Alex Dunlap here with Cody Carpentier on a big Thursday edition of the show. So pumped to be here with you guys here on Orange Bloods Live. And Cody, we've had now, we talked about it yesterday. It's eventually some of these assistant coaches for Steve Sarkisian were going to peel off. And we were talking yesterday about, how long is Tashard Choice going to be here after turning down not turning down, but staying regardless of the Cowboys wanting to interview him. Chris Jackson winning Rivals National Recruiter of the Year. Johnny Nansen is a guy that we've talked about. It's probably, a guy that took a lateral move to come here to Texas and looks like a future head coach in the making. But the one that we saw peel off today, safeties coach Blake Gideon. Your thoughts?
Interesting timing. Right after it didn't really matter because Texas did everything in the early signing period. But like a day after National Signing Day, the final signing day, thought that was a little bit interesting. I think we saw Jonah Williams tweet about him departing with like a damn. He was like, oh man, a lot of responses, I guess, on X from players and former players about Gideon, about the respect for him. A lot of things you read were about Gideon doing obviously good in the recruiting aspect of things the last couple of years, especially in this class with Zealous Hicks and Jonah Williams. And the one thing I thought was, well, he also got the Thorpe Award winner, who's, DB, whatever, safety / corner, in Jade Barron. But I remember a year ago, the conversation being, Alex, the back end's the problem. The back end's the problem. Blah, 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 blah. Remember a year ago, I was like, this defense isn't good because
they were like 125th in the nation or something, right?
Yeah, but remember if you were like us, you were like, well, that was because they had the ball thrown against them so much in game script. And a lot of people, I don't want to say a lot, a good amount of people were like mentioning Blake Gideon's name with a hot seat.
Oh, Terry Joseph too. And rightfully so.
That's what I'm saying is where I'm getting to is like he struck where the iron was hot. Like the opening was there. He was offered the job. It sounded like it was a quick thing. He was offered. He took it. Bang. And I can't say I blame him. I think it's probably a solid spot. Georgia Tech feels like a job where the expectations, of course, are not going to be like to win 10 games every year. It's going to be good. I think.
How long has Brent Key been the coach there?
Feels like a decade.
It does.
It feels like a spot where he can go in and recruit good in Georgia, and he may pull a couple guys from Texas. Who knows? He's a good recruiter on the back end there, and if he can establish a real, couple years as a DC there, it could potentially turn into a head job. That wouldn't shock me at all. I just think he struck where the iron was hot. Like the reference I would use is the Bobby Slowick thing from a year ago for the Houston Texans, right? He was a hot name in the head coaching market. He was the OC for the Houston Texans, a hot name. He just had CJ Stroud win Rookie of the Year, a lot of weapons, blah, blah, blah. This year, he doesn't take a head coaching job. He goes back to Houston. They have a down year. He gets canned.
Yeah.
Well, Gideon's coming off of a big year, big recruiting. Jade wins the Thorpe Award, and all eyes are up. He's offered a job. If he declines that job, now, I think it's a little bit different than Slowick, and you can probably project that Gideon was probably going to get another opportunity at some point, but I think he just struck while it was hot. It's not, and when you think about like schools and stuff, it's highly unlikely you're going to go from secondary coach to DC at like Bama or Auburn or Georgia or something. Doing it to Georgia Tech, I think, is actually a solid move. I think you also look at the way the defensive staff is laid out at Texas right now. There probably wasn't an opportunity for him in the next 5 years to eventually become the DC at Texas. So he's kind of just should have saw it coming.
I have 3 things to say about what you just said, and I want to write them down because people always get mad at me for having my thoughts wander off. But let me just say, okay. So the first thing I wanted to say was I definitely want to highlight what you just said about the being internally promoted on the Texas defensive staff
Mhm.
to defensive coordinator. You're not going to do it right now because there's already one co-defensive coordinator in Johnny Nansen. We talked about that's one of the carrots that you can put out there for a guy saying like, look, you go to defensive coordinator, you say, hey, do you really care if we make this guy co-defensive coordinator? We know that you're still the DC, but we want to keep him on board. It's good for his resume. It's like an in-kind contribution that's on top of any raise that you give the guy, right?
Yep.
It's an elevation in title. That's one thing that won't happen. The other thing that won't happen is PK has said in no uncertain terms that he doesn't want to be a head coach. Do you remember at media days
Yeah.
media days for the playoffs?
Mhm.
The times whenever reporters actually got to talk to Coach PK and asked him if his aspirations were to move on to being a head coach, and he's like, "Man, I just like coaching ball, and I like coaching the defense and all this stuff." And it was like Kirk Bowles or somebody was like, "Yeah, and especially today with all the NIL and money and stuff." He goes, "That's he's like, no, man, no thanks." Like so it feels like Sark is obviously, especially coming off this season with Texas having one of the top defenses in the country in a year where they were. I mean, we can be honest. Coming off the 2023 season, there were a lot of question marks. We weren't sure about Collins, and we weren't sure about Broughton, and there was just the secondary was bad the year before, and you said, well, the personnel's there on the back end. They do have some edge rush stuff, and of course they got Anthony Hills, who's the heartbeat of the thing. We can see it going big, but it's like it was a massive question, right? Like
Mhm.
you lose Sweat, you lose Murphy. Like you said, it's the reason why. Looking back, it's one of the main reasons why teams threw so much on Texas last year. They couldn't or in 2023 they couldn't run on them, and so I think Sark has kind of always believed that, and he's seen it through, and he saw the fruits of kind of sticking with his guy and being loyal and always saying like, no, dude, like Coach PK is one of the most respected defensive minds there is. Like we're gonna get this right, and so I think that moving forward, that's a situation where it's like that apple car is not going to really get upset if
Yeah.
if that makes sense. It's not like there's going to be. I don't see a way of it happening as long as Sark's here and Sark's got a big new contract and like it's just PK is one of the highest paid coordinators in all of football. I just there's no way to move up internally. The other thing that I wanted to hit on that you said was the kind of the Bobby Slowick thing, and we see this with guys all the time who um, they don't. They, I know in the NFL it's different because we talk about there's only 32 head coaching jobs or whatever. But dude, in the FBS there's only what 100.
Yeah,
What
but I mean,
two
also,
268 coordinator or whatever coordinator jobs, right?
and
And
how many Power 5 though? That's the thing. I think Power 5 is a big deal. Like
okay,
he's not taking a Georgia State job.
got got it. Okay, fine. So but there's still a lot of Power 5 coordinator jobs that are going to open up, right? It's a lot more than 32 head jobs in the NFL, right? It's a much larger number of chairs, but it is still a finite number of chairs, right? And so when you think about a guy like Slowick, you think about what about Byron Leftwich when he didn't take what was that? Was that the Jags?
But Jag's job, yeah.
It was the Jags.
Yep.
Does Byron Leftwich even have a job right now?
No, he was actually I think he was just in the news like a week ago. Um,
Whenever
God,
that was whenever they did the fake interview with him for the Rooney Rule and for the Patriots. They brought in him and Pep Hamilton because they just wanted to hire Vrabel.
there you go. There you go. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Yeah, but so the
But that was 2022 the last time he was the OC. It's been 3 years.
but right, I cannot just what a he should. You got to take these jobs, right? You got to take the jobs whenever you have the opportunity, especially when you're totally blocked at your current spot. Even if it's your alma mater, even if everyone loves you, whatever. And especially for a guy who's seen that like that, the fan base could be talking about you on the hot seat as a safeties coach, right? It's
Yep.
like you got your you got your name back elevated, and that was that, right? I'm looking right now at the situation he goes to with Brent Key. You and I were vastly overestimating how long he's been there. Now
Was it 3
he's
years?
been there at Georgia Tech since 2019, but from 2019 to 2022, he was the associate head coach and the offensive line coach, and he was also the run game coordinator. And being the run game coordinator and the associate head coach at a place like
Georgia Tech.
at Georgia Tech is kind of like being the guy that with the keys to the car, if that makes sense. And so that's why we kind of thought he'd been there since maybe the 2019 season, but he took over in that 2022 season as interim head coach. And then from 2023 to now, he's been the head coach. In his games that he coached in 2022 as interim, he took over early as the interim. He went 4-4 that year. In 2023 and 2024, he went 7-6 and 7-6. So he's 18-16 career.
And they're happy with him.
Yeah, he replaced Jeff Collins after 4 games in 2022.
Think about that. That's the situation you're going into. It's like it's a rather solid spot to be. I mean, you're in the power level. You're still at the Power 4, Power 5, and now you get a DC job under a good coach. Like I like the move for Gideon.
I think it's good. I think it's good for him. So good luck to Blake Gideon. Maybe now he'll start answering my texts again because Coach Sark would not let him answer texts. I'm just like, come on, dude. Like you grew up right. Like I could throw a baseball from my house to where you grew up, man, over across the lake in Lago Vista, man. You could talk to me. It's like, no, man, I can't do it anymore.
Text you today. You want to go get a beer?
Yeah. All right. But so congratulations, Blake, for real. And I need to reach out to him and tell him, man. Texas fans and alums are proud of the guy. I hope he does really, really well. And the other thing I just also want to say about Blake Gideon is that regardless of what Texas fans think or what they thought about him as a player or the memories they might have of him in the Crabtree game or in any of the rest of it, he is a highly respected coach. And I think that this kind of goes to show that they think, at his age right now that he's ready for the DC chair. And I think he's gonna do a really good job. So congrats to him. Now Texas has the safeties opening. Anwar put a note up on Orange Bloods about some of the guys that he's hearing about. I want to leave that for Anwar to talk about on his show tomorrow or whatever. I want you to go to Orange Bloods and sign up and go read about it. But 2 of the names that he has on a pretty exhaustive list were names that Cody and I were planning on talking about today anyway, that feel obvious and that were our original thoughts without sort of being sourced by Anwar. And I think that there are some that outside of what Anwar has listed, that could be viable, right? But the first one, Cody, that you thought was a joke when I brought it up, or whenever you heard it on, I guess you heard it on the message boards before I brought it up to you here before the show. And of course, how can you start talking about this without talking about Dwayne Akina? And I know it sounds crazy, but Akina, Akina right now is at Arizona. He's the DB's coach. Obviously, he was there at least was he there for one season with Nansen?
Yeah, he was there. He's a DC in 24. He was an analyst in 23. So he's an analyst the 1 year Nansen with Nansen.
So he knows Nansen. There's the stuff there, and we all know that Akina is just the goat around here. Akina was the one that came up with DBU. He coached all the sickest DBs, man, like all the sickest DBs. And we have I was just watching. Have you seen the new episode of Shark Tank, wherever Aaron Ross and his wife Sonia Richards Ross were on that thing? I was just reminded about how, they were going over his accolades at Texas, and like I'd forgotten all the, what a star-studded, like, just the list of accolades that guys like A. Ross had, but there were a million of these dudes.
This job makes too much sense.
What?
I didn't know he was the coach there when Huff and Ross won it back to back. Thorpe Ward.
Yeah, dude. I mean, there's dude, Cody. It's a laundry list. I mean, like Texas was DBU. That was it.
Well,
Just
I get that. I knew that. Yeah.
no fly zone. It was intensely insane, and it was like the the Griffin brothers and said Griffin and Quentin Jammer. Like the list goes on and on and on. People in the chat talking about Rod Babers. I don't think that. I mean, Babers has a career as a talking head. Like, I'm not. Has Babers been a coach? I mean, I respect the guy. I think he's a pretty cool dude, but I'm not sure that I'm not sure that that's the route that they're going to be going. I'll bring the chat here up on the side so people
his Wikipedia profile doesn't have any coaching on it. For what that's worth.
Rod Babers. I mean, he'd be. Yeah, I think it's South Enzo Queen saying maybe he could be an analyst or something.
That's probably not a bad idea.
I mean, the one thing with Akina, and I know you're not supposed to say this kind of stuff with making hires and everything like that, because I guess it's kind of discriminatory for age, but like he's pretty old, right?
I mean, he's been coaching since 1979.
Yeah. He's been coaching since I was like a little gleam in my dad's eye, dude. It's crazy.
He's still younger than Belichick. He's still got like 6 years on Belichick.
Yeah. Right, dude. You still like in Akina, man, he's still out there firing around. You saw him in 2024 for Arizona. You see him on the sidelines for these games. Like, he looks fine. And I feel like that he would want to come back to Austin. South End Zone Queen is saying Michael Huff. If he wants it, then it should be Huff. Now, we know that Michael Huff's currently on staff. I don't know Michael Huff's exact title on the staff right now, but I do know that I see him all the time at Whole Foods. And I'm not sure that I mean, he seems to kind of like being able to go to Whole Foods like on a Tuesday at noon, whenever the regular people do. You know what I mean? Like,
he's listed as the assistant director of player development.
I kind of think he likes that job. That feels like one of the jobs where you don't have to cruise in every single day. You know what I'm saying? You get to kind of be a part of. Doesn't that feel like a little bit more of a nice sort of squishy job where it's not, day in, day out grind? I mean, Huff's got a bunch of money from his NFL stuff. He makes a good salary doing this. He doesn't have to come in every day.
Dude, I mean, I'll be honest with you, Alex. I always just thought jobs like that were like you still had an office in the building. And I'll be honest with you, this morning, full transparency, didn't know Huff was on the staff, like you just said. And this morning I was listening to a pod, and Rick Spielman got a job as a senior football advisor for the Jets. And he was like Rick Spielman, yeah. Senior advisor, right? And I was listening to his podcast, and he's like, and he lives in Fort Myers Beach, like in Santa Maria Island or whatever. He's like,
he lives in Santa Maria Island is I thought that's off of Sarasota. There could be a different Santa. I might be thinking of Santa Anita Key, maybe. Okay, it doesn't matter.
There's a bunch on there, but regardless, that's where he lives in Florida. He loves it in Florida, and he on the pod.
Anna Maria is what I'm thinking of. All right,
Anna Maria, yeah. Yep. So anyway, he's like, I wouldn't have taken this job if I had to be in the office every day. They're allowing me to go back and forth and be remote, and I'm like, wait, what? You can be a senior football advisor, front office senior football advisor, and be remote in the NFL. So like, again, like I said, I didn't know Huff was even on the roster, but yeah, I think guys in certain situations would definitely like to not go in every day. And I don't know what Huff has to do.
Huff's got it pretty good, man.
Why would you want to, I mean, how old is he? 40, 45, 40? Like, He got kids, like
he's probably about, yeah, probably close to my, I mean, 44, 43, 45. I don't know, somewhere probably around my age.
I wouldn't want to mess that up.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I think he kind of likes it out there, and I'd imagine in Spanish Oaks.
Though
We
he did make a tweet today, with like the disappearing face that comes in and out of the bush. That was it. I think he knew what he was doing, but
dude, he wants to be he wants to be out here in the Lake Travis area and have plenty of time to be able to go by places like Texas Beef Traders. I mean, that's what Huff wants. There would get. Do you know who came into Texas Beef Traders the other day, Cody? Look at that. Don't be giving away any hints. Don't be giving away any hints about any prototypes that we possibly have out there.
He was looking off camera. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And anyway, the Hassan Ridgeway came into Texas Beef Traders. Came in there, hung out with Darren. Darren, of course, he was just like, man, this guy's just a monster. I said, dude, Darren, they used to call him Charlie Strong used to call that dude Green Mile. Like John Coffey from the movie, just a giant, kind of soft-spoken guy, but just a giant. He thought that was hilarious. He's like, dude, he came in, that guy can eat, man. That dude, Darren's gonna feed you whenever you come in. Texas Beef Traders, TexasBeefTraders.com. All these old ex-Longhorns live out there. That's where they all go get their meat. It's where you should get yours too. Vaccine-free, antibiotic-free, steroid-free. It's just the best there is. And you can get it from Mason, Texas. You can get it from Gatesville, Texas. You can get it from Lukenbach. The Piedmontese beef is just so good. You get 10% off by telling them that you heard about them on Football with Friends. And we have the link up for the beef jerky. Cody, can you put that link in the chat? It says beef jerky here. We need to start having Tyler put that link in the show description. Do you know how to go in the show description and add links?
Show description.
What?
I can add it.
Okay. Yeah. So if you're watching this later, just go to the show description. You can buy the beef jerky. Cody and I's 4 signature blends with Texas Beef Traders. They come right from the sirloin cut of the steak. They're delicious, big chunks of beef jerky. The best there is. There's the hot honey. There's the smoked garlic. There's the cowboy blend, and there's the jalapeno garlic. Make sure and check them out. The QR code's right there. The link is in the chat, and we'll also put the link into the description below. By supporting us there, you're supporting Cody, you're supporting me, you're supporting a great shop in Texas Beef Traders, and of course, great local ranchers out there at MTX Ranch in Mason. All right. With that being said, who else kind of came to your mind? The other one that Anwar has on his list that you and I wanted to talk about was Jimmy Lake, who is obviously a candidate of interest because of his connections to Coach PK while they were both at Washington. There was actually sort of, I don't remember the exact nature of the kind of the DC ascension there for Lake versus Coach PK, about one of them trying to get the head job or something like that whenever somebody else left. But they were kind of, weren't they like co-defensive coordinators or something like that for a while? They know each other really, really well. And there was just, whenever Coach PK was hired by Coach Sark, whenever you were kind of reading up about PK a little bit to try and figure out what this dude's all about, a lot of Washington fans say, oh, well, does the credit for this go to PK or does it go to Lake? Like, there was a lot of, the fan base had a lot of really fire breathing takes about who's responsible for what and all the rest. But so obviously those guys have a little bit of a mind meld, and Lake was just fired by
the Falcons.
So he was with the Rams. And then was he DC for the Falcons?
So yeah, so this past year was DC for the Falcons. The year before he was assistant head coach for the Rams. The year before it was an off year. And then before that was Washington. So to answer your question about the Washington stuff with PK and him, PK in 2014, 2017 was the DC. 2016 and 17, Lake was co-DC. Then in 18, Lake was listed as DC, and Kwiatkowski was changed to co-DC. So the titles went co, and then DC, and PK went DC and then co. And then in 2020, PK got the DC job back full time, and Lake got the head coaching job for a year.
Oh, all right. So that's
Flip-flop.
what it was. A lot of internal fighting in the fan base about who was the responsible for for the defense that they were putting together up there. I don't know whether or not that was
That seems like it's either going to be a, hey PK, yes or no, and he's either going to go nah, or he's going to go get him. And it's like, I feel like that's going to be a.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like, I mean, Anwar's saying that it looks like he's probably gonna get some consideration, and considering that he's one of the first guys that kind of came to both of our minds. I think Dwayne Aquina and Lake are the two that make the most sense to me, even though both of I guess both of them you could say it's like, no, Alex, that's kind of, that doesn't make that much sense.
Yeah.
Aquina's going to be 70 years old. Or is that right? He might not be 70 yet.
He'll be 60. Aquino will be 69 in October.
Okay, dude. I mean, that's still, people, guys
Still got
coach
5
for a
years,
while.
5 strong years left at least.
It's fine. The thing with Lake, you just wonder, is there any dissension or any weird tension between those two guys, from all the back and forth and kind of, all the stuff that they kind of had to go through with the internal politics, whatever that was like up at Washington. And if they're cool and they're good and they obviously speak each other's language. And so Esron is saying, I don't know if I want a guy that's been fired multiple times. Well, Esron, he would be going from being an NFL defensive coordinator to being a college safeties coach.
Yeah.
And also guys get fired in coaching circles,
especially in the NFL.
It's just, it doesn't always have to do with the fact that you were bad. Now, Atlanta was bad. Atlanta was bad.
Atlanta
but right.
As a thing. It's not the Cleveland
Browns.
What
are you gonna do with Super Bowl winning GM Terry Fontenot? All he does is draft his 7-on-7 team.
Hey man, can I get Byron Murphy? No, we're gonna take a backup quarterback.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm losing my job.
Paid Kirk Cousins. After the previous years, all we took was Bijan Robinson, and then we took Drake London, and then we took Kyle Pitts, and like all this other stuff. It's
a lose-lose situation for. I mean, you don't get to go out and recruit the guy you want. You just have to be at the. Please, Terry Fontenot, please, can I have Byron Murphy? And then you just kind of,
So tell me some of the other guys that you were thinking about.
I had the list of where to go. So Huff obviously was one of them that was brought up. A couple of other ones.
I don't think Huff. I just don't. We'll see. I mean, he'd be fine if you wanted. I mean, I'd be like, dude, yeah, bring on Huff. But
yeah, I doubt it. But the other couple I thought and saw some talk on the board about was Brian Carrington, who's now the DB coach at Arizona State.
Well, what do you think about bringing Carrington back as a coach? Because we know that he's a hellified recruiter.
Yeah,
I mean and he has kept his Texas route. He's kept piling into Texas. We still follow each other on X and stuff. And like, I see he has the hashtag. I guess you don't hashtag anymore. According to Elon, it doesn't help, but, he actually, do you know that Elon says that hashtags look ugly? And so he actually made his engineers make it to where your posts get unfeatured. They get dinged if you put hashtags on there now.
That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Isn't that wild? What?
I was gonna say, what actually sucks about that is it's borderline impossible nowadays to like go back and find a tweet, even if you type in like at your name and then like the topic. Like if I typed in like at Alex Dunlap tacos, nothing would pop up, even though you've tweeted like pictures of tacos in your life. You know what I'm saying? Like it just doesn't show up anymore. So I love Twitter, but yeah, sorry. Little internal rant there.
He talks about what he has now is this thing, Texas too Tempe. That he's still still pretty firmly entrenched with the Texas stuff. And Money B saying it in the chat, and that would be my biggest question too. We know what a great recruiter is. We know how well he relates to these guys. Is he a good coach? You know, and I'm not entirely sure. I haven't dug in on what
I will say he's he's only ever got two 4-stars. One was a safety, one was a running back. So it's been a lot of. I know he's gotten a lot of guys to go to Arizona State, but it's not like it's not like he went into Texas and it's taken like a 5-star to Arizona State or something.
there are two that Onwar has on here that I'm not gonna talk about. Onwar, we'll leave him for his show tomorrow to kind of talk about some of these additional names. There are two that I certainly wouldn't have thought of that look like intriguing options. But I think that some of the others that you mentioned, Cody, were also intriguing. Who else did you have on your initial kind of board?
Will Harris, former Packer, he's a Florida secondary coach, and then Doug Belk, the USC DB coach. The Doug Belk one, it's there. That situation also just feels like Lincoln. If Lincoln doesn't hit this year, it feels like he's probably out the door, which also means the whole staff's probably out the door. He's got roots in Georgia. He's done well recruiting, at least the state of Georgia and California. Two things Texas has made a point to recruit is obviously California, and then also obviously
I like that.
nowadays hitting Georgia. Will Harris was the main recruiter for Hilton Stubbs, who played safety with Jamie French at Mandarin in Jacksonville. And then he was the main recruiter for Dallas Wilson, the receiver, the 4-star. Some services had him as a 5-star wide receiver that was committed to Oregon. Oregon. I know I always get crap for however I say that, but he's done well recruiting in Florida and Georgia. So I think both of these guys, whether you're talking about a Florida Georgia connection or a Cali Georgia connection, as far as recruiting, those are all obviously hotbeds you want to be focused in on, especially in the defensive back side of the ball.
Make sure and keep an eye on Orange Bloods. We'll have we'll have the breaking news updates. Of course, those are for on. Of course, Onwar will take care of those. But yeah, there is some stuff in the war room right now. South End Zone Queen asked about Will Muschamp. I don't see that as being.
He's still on.
He's still with Georgia, isn't he?
Yeah, I don't think he took a job. He's still an analyst.
What do you mean he didn't take a job? Did he
No,
get fired?
I'm saying I don't think he took a new job. Like he's with Georgia as a defensive analyst. He's kind of in a situation where you might expect him to get a head job at some point.
Or I mean, no, I think he's probably waiting for a good DC job to open up. Do you think he would have taken Georgia? Do you think he would have taken Georgia Tech?
Probably not, because he knows what Kirby is, and he doesn't probably want to be in. I mean, it's a good spot to be in for, I think, like a certain level of longevity for a guy like Gideon, where you can get in, be the DC, control things, and then potentially get a bump up if you're good enough. For a guy like Muschamp, who wants to be back in the SEC and be like potentially a head coach, probably in the SEC, I think you take a job as a DC for a school that you are not going to have to directly compete with for talent, like a Georgia. Like if I'm Muschamp, something that comes to my mind is like, would I take the DC job at like Auburn? Like would I think he's been at Auburn. He's actually DC at Auburn in 2015, like something like that, like where it's like Alabama's not the old Alabama, right now. Like I'm trying to talk myself through this and saying like I wouldn't exactly go to their side and start barking against the dog that I know exists in Kirby.
Yeah, no, yeah. Not sure I would either, man. That's a tough scene for sure. Thanks to Poncho Outdoors for being such a great sponsor for us. Cody's got on a great Poncho hoodie right now. So is that the slate blue one? That's the one, or is that the sky blue one? They got one of those back in stock that I'm going to be ordering pretty soon.
Lighter one.
Dude, Poncho Outdoors is just so awesome. We can't thank them enough for being great sponsors to us, and we just love their clothes. So thanks so much to those guys. And while we're thanking our sponsors, of course, we couldn't get through a show without the Specs chat line. And the Specs chat line is, of course, brought to you by our good friends, our awesome sponsors at Specs.
With hundreds of wines on sale, Specs is turning these aisles into the ultimate love story.
Uncork something special during Specs' huge wine sale, going on now. Specs, the fun starts.
All right, Cody, we have a couple of Thursday topics for today. What do you think? We should just go with this is one that, a couple that you put in here. So according to OU Insider, what is this? Jalen Lott to Texas, according to OU Insider?
Yeah, so that was from my Behind the Enemy Lines column on Tuesday, which kind of caught my eye because Jalen Lott has been one of the highest ranked players for catch over the course of his rankings being released. Let me pull up the exact quote I had here. So from OU Insider, this is from Parker Thune, who's one of the OU Insider guys. He says, again, I personally don't think Jalen Lott is committing anywhere but Texas when push comes to shove. However, I am obligated to inform you that the vibes are pretty solid with Lott coming out of the weekend on his visit, and the Sooners expect him to return to campus for another unofficial visit in March or April. If everything goes well, I suppose anything is possible, but I'd still bet on Texas. That said, it is notable that Lott keeps showing up at Oklahoma.
I mean, okay, so Jalen Lott from Frisco.
Yeah, he's a wide receiver from Panther Creek in Frisco.
Okay, I mean, he's good.
Mm-hmm.
He's good. He's fast. Do you have any thoughts about how he would sort of fit in, about how other guys like him and Sark's offense have come along?
I think I'll just say he's the guy that I think the conversation was about him playing like both sides of the football.
Yep.
Catches note in the LSR top 100. He has him the number 2 prospect in his top 100 behind Turntine. And he says his ability to slide between wide receiver and DB so seamlessly is at an elite level. And that's why I have him rated higher than anyone else. He's a 6.0. He's a 4-star right now, top 45 kid in the country. Like, it caught my eye because he's such a high-ranked, high-sought-after player. I haven't personally watched him, so I'm not going to comment on that from that side of the ball, but I did think that was a very interesting take from a school like Oklahoma that has the guy in, and they're like, he's going to Texas. I mean, this is a foregone conclusion. He's going to Texas.
Well, I mean, it's a big deal. Like I have watched his huddle, and I think he's fast, separates. It's one of these huddle reels where you just see the guy just running completely wide open. You know what I mean? And he can obviously catch. I think on his huddle reel, there's like 3 plays where it could be there could be more on his like I'm trying to think. I do remember there was one where he was I can't remember if he's playing corner or safety, man, where he just comes downhill and just smacks some dude. Just really good form tackle on him. Haven't seen much of him, as far as a DB turning and running with guys, getting in their hip pocket and stuff like that. But like he looks fat. He's fast enough as a wide. He's super fast. So I think that he would be fine. He can obviously move really well. I would say that, I mean, he's a dazzling wide receiver prospect. I think he would have to be really good at DB to have him play on that side of the football. With that being said, I mean, did you see Travis Hunter? I mean, he can play both. More and more of these guys are acting like they can do it now. I forget who the other 2026 guy that says he wants to do both is. But it's
who was that? He was in for a visit this spring, wasn't it?
He was in for a visit I think he came in the fall. Somebody in the chat will probably know the guy that plays both ways. We did a show on him because he said he was the next Travis Hunter, and I can't remember. But anyway, Jalen Lott, interesting there. We'll certainly keep an eye on it. Let's see here. Another Thursday topic. What about this one, dude? This is another one that you put in. Odds to win the SEC are out. Texas is a strong favorite. Who's the biggest sleeper? Unfortunately, I decided to wipe my whole hard drive on my computer yesterday. I can't log into DraftKings right now because I don't know my password.
Here's the odds from FanDuel. Texas is plus 210. They're the favorite. Georgia's plus 390, and then it's a drop down to Bama, Tennessee at plus 700. Then you have LSU plus 1,000 with Ole Miss. A&M is plus 1,600. Then South Carolina at plus 1,800. And then a massive drop down to Florida at plus 3,300. Auburn at plus 3,500. And Missouri at plus 5,000 comes in at 11th.
What does LSU's schedule look like next year?
Well, I think they'll have to travel to, so last year who'd they had come in there? They had Tennessee come in to Death Valley. So this year they'll have
Gosh,
to go.
they open up at Clemson.
Yep.
Then gosh, dude, LSU at Clemson in week. What a week! I can't wait for football. Gosh, and then they'll have at home versus Louisiana Tech. Then they have Florida at home, Southeastern Louisiana. They have to go to Ole Miss. They have to play South Carolina. Gosh, it's got a tough schedule. They get A&M at home. They have to go to Alabama, Arkansas at home, Western Kentucky. Then they go to Oklahoma to end it out. And I guess because of the schedule, that makes it a little bit harder. But whenever I first saw it, I'm like, dude, doesn't LSU with Nuss coming back seem like a lock at plus 1,000 over Tennessee with like Nico?
I'd put their win total at 9.5.
South Carolina at plus 1,800 feels just a little bit too kind of trendy, right?
I think that's a good. Them and Florida are interesting. I mean, we're going to be in
Florida's schedule is brutal, though, Cody.
Well, yeah, of course, but I mean, if we're honest with ourselves, most teams in the SEC's schedule is pretty brutal. But I know Florida gets the same one, obviously, as last year. They have LSU and Miami. Miami's not going to be as hot as they were. They start with 2 cupcakes, so they could start out 4-0 if they can go into LSU and win. Off of a bye, then it'll be the DJ versus Arch matchup in Gainesville. A&M, Mississippi State. So let's say you lose to Texas and you potentially start out 6-1. Then you have Georgia, neutral site, Kentucky at Ole Miss, Tennessee, Florida State. Like, I think that they can pull 9 out of that.
South Carolina doesn't have this schedule to me does not look too foreboding, actually. So they have Virginia Tech, South Carolina State, Vanderbilt, Missouri, Kentucky. That's their first 5.
5-0.
And then they have at LSU, which gets tough.
5-0.
At home versus Oklahoma.
6-1.
At home versus Bama.
7-1.
Really?
Yeah.
Lenora Sellers is going to beat Keelan Russell?
Homecoming.
Oh, homecoming. Okay. At Ole Miss.
7-2.
At Texas A&M.
Off of a bye. 8-2.
Versus Coastal
9-2.
Carolina. And then versus Clemson. I mean,
that's a toss-up.
The best sleeper on that board is South Carolina.
And that's also the Clemson game is also not a conference game. So if they only lose to like one team like LSU or Ole Miss, or like if they lose to one of those teams, one loss SEC team, you're going to be sitting pretty good.
We have how about this, man? So our guy Tom, who emails into the show, I don't want to say his last name, but Tom, he emails on the show. He says if people quit, and remember, you can email us, fwfemails@gmail.com. We would love to have your interaction for part of the show. For people who aren't watching live, most of you guys, I mean, 90% of you guys watch the show later, which is just whenever I meet people, Cody, who watch the show, it's crazy. They're like, man, like I watch you and Cody every morning. I'm like, every morning it's wild, or you know what I mean? Like hardly any of our audience watches the show.
Maybe we should move the show to 8 a.m.
Dude, the show's doing well enough now. I think it's good. I think it's good. I think some people like watching it at night, and some people, but most seem to like watching it the next day. So if you're one of the ones who watches the next day and you want to have you want your feedback on the show, just email us, fwfemails@gmail.com. This is what Tom was saying. I just thought it was interesting. He says if people quit playing spring games, which I think is going to happen.
Yep.
By the way.
Yep.
And it might happen this year, even for Texas.
I'll say it again. I know, like on all the shows, I listen to everything. And people are like, I don't know. Catcher's like, I don't know. I'm like, all I'm going to tell you is the biggest name in college football right now, Josh Pate, as far as like shows go. He's got the biggest show, him and Joel Klatt. And if Pate is on his show saying,
Does Josh Pate have the biggest show?
Yeah.
He's not bigger than McAfee.
College football show. McAfee's not a college football show. McAfee's a daily like ESPN TV show.
Oh, okay.
Maybe if you say biggest podcast, sure, I'll give you that. But as far as biggest college football voice and biggest college football show, that's Pate. And if he's on his show reacting to the rule thing saying, yeah, like there's other teams that we know or that he personally knows that have already said they're not going to play a spring game. They just haven't announced it. Like if he's saying that on his show, it's fact. Like I'm taking
guys. I'll just tell you this, man. I've had somebody telling me since this stuff started, since even before winter conditioning started back up for Texas, spring football is going to be different this year. He keeps saying it. It's going to be different. Going to be different. I'm like how? He's like, I don't know exactly how, but it's going to be different. It's going to be more like NFL OTAs than anything else. And didn't Anwar say that he's going to have something about this in the war room too? So maybe like there's something in the war room that he has, and that could go against what even if Anwar was reporting that, like I talk to people too. I believe that it's going to be different this year, whether or not Texas has a spring game, whatever. But anyway, so this Tom was saying is if people quit playing spring games, it's an accelerant to move the FCS season to the spring. I saw that. I'm like, dude, I would love it if we had football right now that we could talk about going into the weekend. We could get real into your North Carolina, your North Dakota State and stuff, Cody. The Bison.
For sure.
It'd be fun.
I hate the Bison.
Why? Oh, because you went to North Dakota. So look, could it work? Would it mess up the draft?
I think it would. But it'd also make it weird for like a player to transfer. I think in theory it sounds great, but I think as far as it being actually like a thing that happens, I think it's a lot closer to zero than it is like a 5% chance. And that's because one, you'd be manipulating and playing with the draft schedule, which is season's over. Now it's like a week, boom, Senior Bowl. And then it's full blown combine draft, blah, 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 blah. And at that point you'd have a whole slew of players like Thomas Perry from Middlebury and you know, Gray Zabel from North Dakota State and Carson Vincent from Alabama A&M. All these guys that are going through the draft process right now would instead be like ramping up to start a season tomorrow. And
is Alabama A&M FCS?
HBCU is FCS. Yeah,
it is. Okay. I wasn't sure.
So like preparing to start a season, and like most of the places, I will say like it would work because like most of like the northern schools have like domes. So like you would have to worry about like North Dakota schools playing like in weather they can't play in or something like this. It would just be like winter the whole season. But as far as like the draft process, you'd nuke the whole draft process. You'd have to like make the FCS players able to go into like a supplemental draft before the NFL season happens in like June or July or August or whatever.
That would be a dream for us. We have a whole second draft to cover.
Correct, but it would be brutal for those players, right? Because those players wouldn't get a proper due process to show their athleticism, maybe you could do it. Maybe you could run a season from February, March, and April, and then these players are, preparing for a combine in June, and then they're drafted into July. You could probably fit it, but again, from a you and me perspective, more content, more things to talk about. I would
obviously I'm biased. I just love football. I want football on my TV all the time. I mean, football is on my TV all the time.
You want live?
I pull up the all 22 cut ups and I throw them on my TV, and I have football on during the off seasons. It's just different.
I just think it messes with a lot of things, and then you bring in the fact of like transferring. Okay, so a kid goes to the FCS because he's 5'11", 240 pounds, and he grows into being a 6'2", 295 pounder. And now he's got a body that can play at the Division I FBS level. Now he needs to transfer to a bigger school. Okay, so he just played a whole entire spring season, February, March, April. Now he's transferring in May, June, which is cool because it's a summer. And he's going to start boom, right back up. Like a month later, he's going to ramp back up to fall camp at this new school. It's just he doesn't get an off season. I think there's just a lot of things that, from a schedule standpoint, wouldn't work, unfortunately. But I like the idea.
Here's the idea. I don't know. Here's the idea that I love. Right? Is getting somebody to be a title sponsor of this show. Right? Isn't it? Wouldn't that be incredible? If you want to advertise here on the show, you want to partner with me and Cody, you know how hard we work for our sponsors, how much we plug our sponsors, and we need a title sponsor for the show. And the person who's doing those deals right now for not only our show, but for all the shows across Orange Bloods Live, as the channel continues to grow and as Orange Bloods continues to grow with the success of the football team and in recruiting, it's just such a great. I wish you guys could know the power of advertising on Orange Bloods. I think if you're interested in it, you've ever thought about it for your company, your product, your service, I would recommend giving it a try. It's been so successful for people. I don't really know anybody that's like signed on to be a sponsor and then just like left. It's things happen where it's like we get a new sales manager in or something like that, and she looks at it and she's like, hey, like, we kind of need to get a new sponsor here because you're delivering too much value, for what you're getting paid. Right. So you can email her, Sonny Nelson at orangebloods.com, or call Sonny at 512-924-4038 and just advertise to thousands of diehard Longhorn fans. It's just direct marketing, man. It's crazy. You have a complete captive audience. So thank you guys for considering it. If you've been thinking about maybe advertising, we would certainly love to have you on board here at Orange Bloods. All right, Cody. Let's give the people just real quick before we get out. Do you have a Cody? No more hints, dude. Do you have any? Let's give people a two-banger for prize picks for the Super Bowl. I have one that I have thoroughly researched that I really love, that is not sexy, maybe a little bit cockamamie, but I think it's going to hit, and I'll tell you why. And that is I got to thinking about how this game's going to go, right? And I'm like, what is going to happen with the Kansas City Chiefs running game here against a Philly defensive front that I don't want to run at, right? And I think about Isaiah Pacheco, and I think about Kareem Hunt and how that split's worked, and Hunt has been better than Pacheco. But I always wonder, I got to thinking to myself, Philly's the kind of team that, at least when I think about this season, I'm like, they do a good job of just shutting down the run early, right? And so I got into looking at some of the rushing props on Prize Picks, and I found one for Kareem Hunt, 19.5 rushing yards on his first 5 attempts. Okay, and I got to thinking, I'm like, man, is he really going to average like 3.9 to 4 yards a carry? I guess that would be technically be more like 3.9 per carry to start out this game. And I said, well, all right, let me just look at what other running backs have done against Philly in their first 5 attempts. And so I went back and went through all the game logs and all this stuff. So the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 games, they've gone up against reasonable running backs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 running backs in those 9 games. Here are their first 5 attempts. Washington in the divisional round. NFC Championship round. Brian Robinson went 5 yards, 3 yards, 3 yards, 2 yards, and 0 yards for 13 on his first 5 attempts. Brian Robinson stinks. I get it, but Kareem Hunt's a little bit dusty too. Eckler goes for 4, -1, 4, 3, and 1. That's 11 total. Now, one of the ones who did it was Kyron Williams in the divisional round. Kyron Williams, he popped one. He had 3. Then he popped 1 for 20. And then his others were 4, 2, and 3. So 32 total. Okay. So that goes over. Versus Green Bay, Josh Jacobs, not Dusty, right? Not Dusty, good. 2-2-4-3-3, 14 total. Versus the Giants, Tyrone Tracy, not Dusty, good. 0-9-1-2-2, 14 total. Singletary in that same game, 2-5-3-4-2, 16 total, under. Dallas, Enrico Dowdle, 1-9-3-0-1 for 13 total. Washington, again, Brian Robinson goes 0, -2, 0, 1-3 for 2 total yards. Versus Pittsburgh, Najee goes for -2, 2, 0, 4, and -1, 7 total yards. Jalen Warren, who has fresher legs than Najee, goes 1, 4, 4, 1, and 6 for 16 total. Then you have the only other guy out of these, what did I say? 12 runners. Chuba Hubbard, like Kyron Williams, blasts off one nice run. He goes for 5, 15, 4, 4, and 3. So that's a total of 31 yards. So that goes over. And then, dude, versus Derrick Henry, Baltimore, he goes 5, 0, 4, 6, 4 for 19. Derrick Henry goes under. Josh Jacobs goes under. It's like, unless one of these guys like Kyron Williams or Chuba Hubbard was able to pop one big 10-plus yard run, everybody goes under. And I don't think Kareem Hunt is that good. Kareem Hunt, less than 19.5 rushing yards on his first 5 attempts.
I like it. I like it.
What are they going to pair it with?
It's interesting. I didn't think that was the direction you were going to go. I guess I have 2 right now at the top of my tongue, and I think one's going to be massively bet this weekend, so I'm going to go the opposite one. And I'm just going to go with a theory. And you always say you want to project the game, you got to tell a story. My story is this: Chiefs are going to win. They're going to three-peat. Kelsey's going to retire. He's going to propose to Taylor Swift on the field.
Oh, no. God.
He's winning MVP. He's catching more than 6 footballs. He's catching a touchdown. He's going to get the job done. He's been milking it all year, and he only shows up when they need him. He didn't show up last week because they needed him, but he didn't show up. 117 yards on 7 catches, 84 on 8 catches. The previous 2 playoff games against Houston and Pitt. Or not, Pitt wasn't a playoff game, but the previous 2 games. I'm going over 6 receptions for Travis Kelce. And my story again, he wins MVP, so he goes way over 6.
If he goes MVP, he's going to go over his fantasy points.
He might have 12 catches in this game.
Fantasy point. I wonder what his fantasy points is, higher or less. Is it like 17.5 or something?
I don't know. I don't have prize picks up, but I'm going 6 receptions. He might double that up. He's winning the MVP. He's catching a touchdown. He's proposing after the game, and he's retiring. If you can get all that on one slip, good luck. That'd be awesome. I know there's a lot.
You probably can.
There's a lot of crazy props out there this weekend. We're gonna have a couple of those on the show tomorrow for Final Takes, because we gotta project the Gatorade color. We gotta do heads or tails. This is gonna be a good Final Takes episode.
All right, looks like my son and daughter got promotions tonight at jiu-jitsu. So shout out to them. And tomorrow we're gonna try and do the show early. So just keep your eye here. Maybe it'll be 5, maybe it'll be 5:30. Cody and I are going to talk about that. All right. So now you can email us, fwfemails@gmail.com. You can find Cody on X at Cody Carpentier. I'm at Alex Dunlap NFL. Thank you guys so much for being here. We can't tell you how much we appreciate it. If you could like the show, subscribe to the channel. That's a big deal for us. But the biggest deal is you guys continue to come back. You continue to help us to grow the show. We cannot tell you how much we appreciate it. Just continue to come back, man. We're always going to come in. We're going to get right into football. We're going to talk football. We're not going to waste your time. We are very, very respectful of it. We know that it's your most important resource. So thanks for spending it here with us. God bless you guys, man. Love y'all. For Cody, I'm Alex. We're done.